Energy Minister Chris Bowen is speaking.
To be very clear to the Australian people before the election what it is, we're committed to that. We've begun the process of setting it. Mr Dutton needs to come clean. Will he have a 2035 target or not? I mean, they can't even deliver a 2030 target. They're saying they want a pause on renewable energy investment. They want to stop transmission. There's no way of achieving a 2030 target without doing those things. They, on their more honest moments, concede that nuclear has no realistic possibility of being anywhere near up and running by 2030 in Australia, so they have no plan. Now, the Paris Accord was signed up to, Australia signed up to the Paris Accord under Tony Abbott. I previously said that Peter Dutton would be a worse Prime Minister for the climate than Scott Morrison. I now say, given that they are hinting they won't have a 2035 target and will leave the Paris Accord, he will be a worse Prime Minister for the climate than Scott Morrison or Tony Abbott, and that takes some doing. So we know that this coalition is full of climate change denial. We know that it's full of people who don't accept the science, and they are calling the shots. We know that the National Party signed up to net zero before the last election, but they never really believed it, and they don't believe it. You've got the likes of Barnaby Joyce and Matt Canavan out there every day, explicitly, clearly and openly undermining Australia's commitment to net zero. Would a Dutton government be committed to net zero by 2050 or not? Would they have a 2035 target or not? It's time to come clean. Will they join Libya, Yemen and Iran as the only countries without a Paris Accord commitment around the world? Would Australia really join that foreign policy contingent? Think of the implications for our international reputation, our trading partners, if a Dutton government was to do that by not having a 2035 target. I mean, it's a joke. This is an opposition which is not committed to real action on climate, which denies the science and denies action. They are a coalition of climate inactivists and cookers, and they would cook the planet with their lack of a climate change policy. The final matter I just wanted to touch on today is the recent developments on offshore wind. I want to be very clear about a couple of things. The Albanese government is very committed to the development of an offshore wind industry in Australia. We've made that very clear by our actions, having declared the Gippsland zone and the Hunter zone being well advanced in the Illawarra and Southern Ocean zones. Just before Christmas, I notified those proponents in the Gippsland zone who are proceeding to the next stage, and there is a process underway to issue feasibility licences subject to the Act. So we're very committed to that. But we're also committed to proper environmental approvals and assessments, and we've always said that. And every particular development has to meet those criteria and those requirements under the EPBC, as indeed they have to under various state acts as well. This is not a choice between those two things. We are committed to getting more renewable energy in Australia, and particularly committed to Australia seizing the opportunities of offshore wind, which is energy rich and jobs rich, will create thousands of jobs in Australia's regions. But it has to be done properly and carefully. I know some commentators argue that renewable energy related developments somehow don't go through environmental approvals. Well, I think this proves that they're wrong. Minister Chris Bowen has very assiduously applied the EPBC Act. The Victorian government has indicated they will consider further applications for Port of Hastings, which we welcome, and indeed state and federal officials have already met to consider the next stage and discussed potential next steps. But every particular application.
OK, Climate Change and Energy Minister Chris Bowen there speaking in Sydney, talking about climate change and very much attacking the opposition, Peter Dutton, in relation to their climate change targets, saying that Peter Dutton wouldn't be able to reach a 2030 target there.